A single-tail grub has proven its worth over decades, but so many anglers have either one, not thrown it, or two, forgotten all about it. And for those of you that still use a single-tail grub, you know how powerful it is. For me personally, I love to use this subtle lure in cool to cold water. In the late fall, all the way through the early spring, it can really excel, especially because water clarities often improve over the cooler months with debris and sediment settling out from less activity on the water, especially farther north. And the first time I really gave some serious effort to grub fishing was about 20 years ago on Beaver Lake in northwest Arkansas. It was a cold bluebird day. The skies were crystal clear and the water was also clear. In other words, the conditions were not ideal. We were unable to get a jerkbait bite going on that particular day because the bass were just not high enough up in the water column. They were hanging out around that 20-foot mark instead of that 12 to 15 feet or shallower that can make for some awesome jerkbait fishing. Well, out comes the single-tail grub. While there are lots of jig heads you could rig on this, a standard round ball works just fine. Now this retrieve has two key parts. First is this sink. Cast it out and let it drop straight down on a slack line. And when fishing cooler water, I really like a smaller jig head. The slow fall is important to imitating that easy meal trigger that can get lethargic bass to bite. And once the lure hits the bottom, leave it sit there just a few seconds in case a bass followed it down. Then I will give it a little pop to clear any debris and start the straight retrieve back. I keep the rod tip low to maintain depth for as long as I can, and my first cast to an area are literally as slow and steady as I can get them. And the beautiful thing about a grub is it takes little effort to get that tail kicking. If the bass appear to be maybe in a slightly more aggressive mood, then I might add a little twitch here or there to the retrieve. But so often with the grub, straight and steady is very effective. As far as colors, it's hard to beat white. No need to make things overly complicated. And probably my favorite part of fishing a grub is the rod just loads. There's no rip-lipping hook sets needed. Suddenly there's weight, just kind of lean into it, and the landing rate is very high. Oh, and did I mention it's pretty likely you may be the only one around throwing a grub, which means pressured bass probably haven't seen it, and that is always a win-win. And hey, if you want to watch a video that really breaks down something with Texas rigs that is overlooked or not utilized as often as it should be, go ahead and check out this video right here, and make sure that you go out and encourage someone today. You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.